Okay, please welcome with a round of applause Anni Anttonen and Tak Umezawa and Young-il An. Please welcome them. 자, 박수로 세 분을 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
Hello everyone. So my name is Doer, Young-il An, and Doer means stop thinking, start doing. Yeah. I am a very typical type of the Korean ajashi and uncle. So I have drunken a lot of alcohol, so I lost my left hemisphere. So I'm getting along with a lot of people, brainstorming always. So I'm always emptying myself to my right hemisphere. But I'm very passionate about nurturing and cultivating startup ecosystem in South Korea. And for the past 6 years, I have been operating 팁스타운. TIP stands for Tech Incubator Program for Startups in South Korea. And I have incubated more than 2,000 startups, super early stage startups, and I have seen them growing and expanding to the global. Still, I am questioning, am I doing well? Not doing well enough. I have to always benchmark and grow. And for this meaning and with respect to that, I'm inviting CIC and Maria01, the persons in charge from Finland and Japan. Please give them a round of applause. So, thank you. Before we start the discussion, could you briefly introduce about yourselves?
Yeah, I can go
Anni
first.
Yeah.
Really pleased to be here. My name is Anni Anttonen. I work as a COO at Variowell, which is a startup hub / community that we operate in the center of Helsinki in Finland. We've been in operation for around 8 years, and through that we have had 6,000 roughly startups pass through our walls, so to say. We're actually located in an old hospital that was turned into a startup campus when we noticed that the startup ecosystem in Helsinki started booming, and they actually wanted to have a physical location where they can come together. So basically we offer space for startups, but mainly we actually nurture a community of different stakeholders within the startup ecosystem to support their growth paths.
Please. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tak Umezawa, coming from Tokyo. I'm the chairperson of CIC Japan. CIC stands for Cambridge Innovation Center, Cambridge in Massachusetts, United States. CIC has large-scale startup centers in a city center location in 10 cities across the globe so far. The Tokyo site we opened 4 years ago, amid the corona pandemic, was the first Asian site for CIC. We are now in preparation for opening the second site in Japan, in Fukuoka, the western part of Japan. And we are also in negotiation with several other property developers to open maybe the third and the fourth site in other cities in Japan. CIC Tokyo, as of today, is Japan's largest startup campus, but in size-wise, actually, we are not comparable to yours as well as Maria's 01. But we host about 330 organizations on the 2 floors of a large building in the city center of Tokyo. And we focus on building a real community. So it's a large shared office service, but at the same time, probably similarly to Maria's case, we provide various networking and learning opportunities for those entrepreneurs as well as people who like to collaborate with startups or people who like to invest in startups. So far, on average, we have done about 200 various events every year, even during the time of corona pandemic. That includes startup pitches, investor days, networking events, and various acceleration programs. Maybe I'll touch upon more detail later.
So, as I have explained at the backstage, South Korean government is about to establish our own startup hubs. in Hongdae and Busan metropolitan city. And the main single and most important purpose of why we are doing this is it surely impacts the economy. And it surely impacts for startup ecosystem as well. So what has been most critical and significant impacts that you have generated in your own regions? Please, Ms. Annie, first.
Yeah, we annually do an impact report where we actually study how our startups have impacted the ecosystem, especially as we are partly owned by the city of Helsinki. They're very interested in how much we're actually contributing to the economy. So I would say that one of the metrics that we're very proud of is that throughout the 7 years, as we're still 1 year behind in the statistics, that startups have raised around 917 million euros in VC funding, which is very good numbers seeing as they're very early stage companies. So they've been able to attract especially foreign funding to Finland. Actually, a lot of people don't find startups to be a very interesting employer because they find it to be very risky. But actually, our startups are also employing a lot of people. So we've had over 10,000 people work for our startups throughout. So those are the metrics that we are mostly looking into, but of course there is different kinds of impact, like for example, attracting foreign capable employees to Helsinki, inspiring young people to be entrepreneurs and so forth.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. What about you, Mr. Pak? Mr. Tak?
Probably our biggest contribution so far is building a truly vibrant and largest innovator community in the center of Tokyo. Number-wise, we are still very young, and we need to work harder to produce many unicorns. But in terms of capital equity investment into the companies we house at CAC, probably it's in the range of several $100 million. So still fairly modest. We really value 3 keywords to dramatically accelerate the growth of the startup ecosystem in Tokyo and in Japan. The keyword number 1 is deep tech and global.
Deep tech and global.
Global and diversity.
Diversity.
And I'll explain why.
That's why we need in Korea. Yeah.
Well,
Please.
probably you have done, but yeah. In the past, the Japanese startup ecosystem has been really driven by 2 or maybe 3 types of startups: B2C smartphone applications, B2B SaaS, and gaming companies. And most of those companies were heavily focused on the domestic market. 2 years ago, the Japanese government announced a 5-year startup development plan with the direction from the Prime Minister. And that plan says that we're going to increase the amount of investment into startups by 10 times in 5 years. 10 times in 5 years. And to achieve that, those startups with the strong focus on domestic market probably wouldn't help much. So we need to really significantly expand the diversity of the startups and help them go global and grab a significant market share in the global market. And what types of startups could potentially do that? Our answer is deep tech. So that is why we say deep tech and going global. And to help them succeed in the global market, diversity is a necessity. So hence those 3 keywords.
Okay, thank you very much for the answers. So the deep tech startup is one of those key initiatives to the South Korean government as well. That is why we are trying to establish our own deep tech startup hub in 2026 in Hongdae area. So no matter how many startups, or no matter how deep tech startups we have, what it matters, maybe one of the most thing is cash in and cash out. The investors has to be there. And not only domestic sided investors, but also international investors should be around here in the startup ecosystem. So what has been the magic sauce or strategic implementation plan for you two guys to invite global investors strategically? What was the real practices? Could you give me some tips, please?
We're actually very lucky at Mario 01 as the world's largest founder investor meetup is hosted annually in Helsinki. The Slush conference, hopefully you will be attending that at some point. So it actually this year brought over 4 trillion euros of investment capital into Helsinki. And the investors are traveling there from all over the world, especially from America, to visit the event. So that's usually when we host a lot of different events and meetups at our campus to get them there, and we also utilize that event to actually, organize meetings with them. So our entire team is there with the goal to just like meet up with investors to get them into our scope and our network. And I think one very important thing that we did in the beginning is that Mario 01 was founded by the startup ecosystem, the founders and investors themselves. So from the beginning, we've had all the best and most important Finnish early stage VCs as part of the network. They're actually in-house tenants, so they have their offices at our campus as well. So these investors are also attracting foreign investors to, first of all, be interested in Finland in general, but also at Mario 01. So I think like a very concrete tip would be to actually get your local investors heavily involved in the hubs and have them also promote you to their network, because investors also want to meet each other.
Yeah, that's great. So, Mr. Tak, please.
Yeah, we haven't really succeeded yet. So I'm going to tell what we are trying to do. Well, first of all, the CAC is probably the most international innovation hub in Japan so far. So, because of our origin from Massachusetts, Boston. So we have succeeded in attracted clients or tenants like American Chamber of Commerce or Canadian Chamber of Commerce, several government agencies from Europe. And those agencies are acting as a hub to invite both non-Japanese startups as well as investors. Also, secondly, because of our focus on deep tech, probably it is more appealing to non-Japanese investors, potentially. And we are working with the government, both the national government as well as the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, on the strategy to attract the top-tier US venture capitals to Tokyo. Once we succeed in doing that, probably those deep tech startups will have a much easier way to get into the US market, for example, for startup like life science startup. As you know, the life science market is the far biggest in the States. Sure. So without having a significant share there, it's not going to be a unicorn. So we need that kind of leeway to get into the US market. We have no equity policy as an operator. So we, instead of investing in promising startups ourselves, we invite many investors, both the VCs and CVCs, and we provide the best environment for entrepreneurs to select from a good pool of investors, as opposed to being kind of enclosed by a specific seed investor.
Thank you so much for the answers. I feel like I have to employ one of those strategies, to better, blossom our startup hubs as well. So it has been investor side question. So I'm gonna reverse it back to question through with like a startup side question. So what has been like one of the most notable and beautiful experience that you have incubated to the startup founders, or in supporting startup founders or deep tech startup founders, their research and development ways, and how did they go through with the global markets with their expansion? And what do you think was one of the key factors that you have supported for the startups to go global? Ms. Annie, please.
Okay, that's a very specific question. We have quite a lot of success stories. We don't really, at Mario 01, we don't have our own incubator. We don't do projects. Basically, we're more of a platform where the most ambitious startups are screened to be there for maximum of 3 years, and it's on them to grow their network. And we just enable that. We're bringing them educational sessions, peer-to-peer learning, connections and possibilities to network. So we don't really hold their hands. But I would say, first of all, one very big success story is a company called Silo AI, which actually was just acquired by an American company for 600 million euros, which is actually the biggest AI acquisition in Europe. They're doing very well, and they were one of our early members at Mario01. But I think one that I've been following up a little bit more on is a company called DataCrunch, which is actually kind of a prime example of what we want Mario01 to actually be, because they started so that they had heard that Maria is a great place for people who are starting a company. So they founded their company in 2020. 2021, they decided they need to have an office. They came to Maria because they had heard great things about it. They took 3 hot desks, and in 3 years, they've now grown to 35 employees. They actually have an office, which is like the entire floor of one of our buildings. And they just raised their first funding round for 13 million euros this fall. And they have been very active in the community from the beginning. They attend our sessions. They contact the other founders when they have problems to kind of learn peer-to-peer. They attend our afterworks. They help others out. So they are those like active members in the community. And I think a community is as strong as how much you also put into it. Sure, yeah. So I think they're kind of the, as I said, prime example of how companies should develop when they're at Maria. Now they've been at Maria over 3 years, so technically we should kick them out because they've maximized their 3 years, but we've still let them stay because they're on their like very fast trajectory of growth.
Cool. Mr. Tak, please.
Yeah. One of our clients is called Sakana AI. You know the company, okay?
I love them.
Yeah, okay. Well, Sakana AI is a really transformative AI startup, very, very young, and they are very well known because they became a unicorn within 1 year of the incorporation. They are working on developing the foundational models for user-specific applications and automating it. So new way of a kind of generative AI company. They became our client about a year ago, and since then they have been really actively engaging other companies as well as investors, and they have collected a good portfolio of international VC and domestic CVCs as investors, and became the unicorn. So the story is actually very similar to yours.
Wow.
We didn't really help the company per se,
Really?
but because they are surrounded by kind of like-minded innovators, and they are in probably the most vibrant innovation community, which attracts various talent on a daily basis. So they keep hiring good talent, and they keep attracting attention from large corporates as well as investors. So that's how they became a unicorn in such a short time.
Thank you so much. So as startups are, by their nature, we never maintain at the status quo. And that's also same with the startup hubs. We also have to follow the guidelines and waves of the changes of the technologies. So as technology changes, startup hubs' role and responsibility, and we need to adapt ourselves. Hardwares are hard to change, but when it comes to softwares or plannings or some kind of like providing supplementary things for the startups should be changed. So what do you think is the like a key mission and vision and driving forces that we have to go forward as a startup hub, like managers and directors? Please.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because in a way we're in a very old school, tangible kind of business at our hub that we want to actually bring people together. We want to facilitate these kind of random meetings at our campus sauna or gym or after work. So I think in our case, the companies, they bring the tech, that's their core business, that's what they focus on. We focus on our core business, which is people and the community. So we're more in the human interaction business rather than being the ones to invent new things, so to say. We try to facilitate with being a test bed for our startups. So usually if they have something that they want to pilot, we're usually the first ones to test it out. But as I said, I think it's more on the companies and their talent to be the ones to create the new innovations in tech, and we support them in that. And of course, it's important to stay on top of the trends and what's happening so that when they need to be connected to somebody who knows about a specific topic, we know who that person is, but we're usually not the ones to give technical advice.
Mr. Tak, please.
Yeah, at CAC, we have 3 kind of innovation campus concepts, and we call it first generation, second generation, third generation. The first generation is something like CAC Tokyo, basically a generalist type, very large. And the second generation is specific tech domain driven. So a life science hub, for example, or robotics hub. We also have the second generation innovation campuses in the States, and we are exploring opportunities actually in Asia too, especially about facility for biotech and life science companies with the shared wet lab facility as well as the shared office facility. Probably we're gonna have one sometime soon here in Asia as well. The third generation is rather than driven by the technology domain, it's driven by theme-driven or challenge-driven. So yeah, something like climate tech, for example, or probably aging society. And we are also in the process of developing the third generation hub in the States on the theme of climate tech. So those 3 probably are complementary each other. It's not like the second generation is better than first generation, because the first generation as a generalist hub has the beauty of helping innovation which entrepreneur didn't think of. For example, for somebody with a life science tech seed, we generally have events for femtech, sport tech, or wellness, for example. And if that entrepreneur joins one of those events, probably she or he will find a new potential use case which the entrepreneur didn't think about before. It's only possible in a kind of generalist type, broad-based innovation campus. But at the same time, the second generation hub can easily collect venture capitalists with a very strong focus on life science. So probably the density of the communication will be thicker. So there are pros and cons, and probably we like to explore all 3 of them.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the answers. So we can have these various kinds of the spectrum of the supporting programs or concepts or theme-driven or mission-driven things. But if there's one thing that you would recommend to early stage startup founders, one course of the education or training, what would it be?
Like a very concrete tip for utilizing the hub, you mean, in a way?
Yeah. And education and training courses?
Yeah.
For the early stages startup founder, and why?
Yeah. Well, I would just say that be active. It is your company to grow. So don't let a hub or any program tell you like this is how you should do it. Take responsibility for yourself, especially as we don't have programs. As I said, it's more a platform and we facilitate things. It's up to you to utilize that. So make a personal brand for yourself within the hub and the ecosystem. I think that's very important, because then usually, for example, when we bring up startups, when foreign investors ask, what are interesting cases to look into, we will know about you and your work. Go actually and knock on the doors of your peers, ask them for coffee or lunch and spar with them. Use that knowledge that you have within the hub. go to educational sessions, go visit the VCs in their office, or try to catch them in the yard. So these are very, very kind of root level tips that I'm giving, but that's just because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to level the ground so that everybody has equal opportunities to grow their businesses. So be active. It is your company to grow. Don't
Being
expect
active thinker.
Be an active, yeah. It's like don't expect other people to hold your hand and bring you to the events that are important to you or to meet the people that you should meet. You have to know who you have to meet, and you should know what things are relevant for you in your specific stage and your specific tract, so to say.
Okay. Please, Mr. Tak.
Well, I fully agree with your advice. Maybe another thing we could offer at CIC Tokyo. So if you operate in Tokyo, we sent selected entrepreneurs to Boston on a program sponsored by the Japan's Cabinet Office, or JETRO, which is the METI's arm. And the purpose is really helping entrepreneurs to meet with the potential investors in the States or potential business partners in the States. So if you are an entrepreneur, let's assume in life science or robotics, with the global aspiration, probably that type of experience will really accelerate your company's growth. And I believe that Korea has many programs like that too.
Yeah, sure.
So take the chance of taking such a kind of global program if you could.
Thank you. So if you could summarize or pick just one single vocabulary to express what you have mentioned as like a recommended course for startup founders, what would it be? One single vocab.
One word, 2 words: involvement in the entire ecosystem.
Yes, thank you.
For entrepreneurs?
One vocab for recommended course for startup founders.
Maybe global mind.
Global mind.
Yeah, especially
thank you.
for a country like Korea and Japan.
Global mind. Yeah. For me, it is communication, communication, communication. Passionate communication. So my last question goes, so since we are about to establish our startup hubs in Busan and Seoul, if you understand just a little bit about our situation of the South Korean startup ecosystem, yeah, you will answer it specifically. Otherwise, maybe you can answer it generally. So what do we have to do this well? The startup hubs in Hongdae and Busan. What do you propose? As a policymakers or executioners, practitioners, what would you propose? Please.
I would first of all propose don't compete with each other. Try to create a Korean ecosystem rather than one in Busan, one in Seoul, or wherever, because I think you're stronger on a global market when you seem bigger than you are. Speaking from Finland of 6 million people. And then I would say find local heroes who want to contribute to your ecosystem, because that will create the fear of missing out for everybody working within the startup ecosystem, and that's how you actually make it grow. That's how we built Maria as well. So local heroes.
Global heroes. Thank you, thank you.
2 things. One is selecting the right theme for your hubs. So it could be maybe something about manufacturing, or maybe it could be challenge-based, challenge-driven, like aging society. And the second advice is maybe leveraging the strength of the industry ecosystem you have, like big global leaders like Samsung and LG. Maybe the assets they have could be also a big help for startups coming from Korea.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing those invaluable insights today. It was Miss Annie from Maria 01, and it was Mr. Tak from CIC. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I was Doer Young-il-an. I'm in charge of running 팁스타운 and TIPS program as well, and running the Global Startup Center in South Korea. If you had any question to me about the South Korean startup policy, you can approach me. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.